Okay, so we'll move on to some. We're going to do some NFL topics, and then we'll move on and preview the playoff games coming up this weekend. So there was some stuff that kind of drove me crazy this weekend. So just some kind of random stuff. So after Detroit beat Green Bay, which by the way, impressive job by Detroit. I thought the plays that they called at the end of that game, going for it on the fourth down to win it, the like hook and lateral thing that they did on 2nd and 20, like Detroit was going balls out, and I give them a lot of credit for that. And right off the bat, we gave Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni, the coach of the Eagles, a really hard time about their opening press conferences. And I got to tell you, Nick Sirianni's proven he's a good coach, and Dan Campbell, those guys play their asses off.
They've gotten better. They keep getting better. So, and especially Detroit. Detroit has been Detroit's been bad seemingly for so freaking long. And this year they actually look like a competent football team. So.
Yeah, Detroit was 1-6. They finished the season 8-2. That's impressive. Now, I heard some people go a little overboard. I heard Dan Patrick the next day being like, "Oh, Jared Goff's awesome." I'm like, "Okay, take it easy." Like, I watched Jared Goff in that game. He was okay. He threw a lot of balls in the dirt. I think he made some plays, and I give him credit for that. But let's slow down. I think it's even more of a credit to Dan Campbell. He's doing this with Jared Goff and guys you've never heard of, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think Detroit deserves the coach and the coaching staff, especially the offensive coordinator, deserve a lot of credit. Amazing win. But after the game, Aaron Rodgers was doing his thing he does now at the end of seasons, where he basically kind of walks around and then does the press conference. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I might have to leave. We'll see what happens, blah, blah, blah. He wouldn't give his jersey to somebody that wanted it. He walks off the field holding Randall Cobb. And, it's this whole thing like, is this? And then, he's got Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth, which I think are the ultimate hams of football broadcasting. But they're like, oh, well, this could be the last one. I don't know. This might be the last time at Lambeau Field, blah, 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 blah. So, I'll just put this to you, Clark. What do you think's going on with Aaron Rodgers?
Well, he's turning into Brett Favre. Because this was like the last, I don't know how many years in Green Bay when Brett Favre was there. It's just like, is he going to retire? Is he not going to retire? Is he going to retire? And the difference was, though, for whatever reason, people just love Brett Favre. So I don't think that they love Aaron Rodgers that way. So I guess it's kind of annoying. At this point, I don't really care. I really don't, like, if he retires, if he doesn't. It's the same thing with Brady. I really don't, I'm a little annoyed with it, but it's just like, I really don't care, dude. I just get more annoyed with Colin Cowherd talking about it every frickin' day, but, criticizing Aaron Rodgers because he's kind of wishy-washy, and he went to South America, and he did ayahuasca, and he's kind of weird, and he's dating these weird people, and he's kind of not really, doesn't have a solid foundation or whatever. It's just, I really don't care. If he retires, he's, I guess, what it is, the main annoying thing with it is, okay, certain players reach a point where what they are, okay? Like, for instance, another sport, Kevin Durant. We know what Kevin Durant is. He's one of the best scorers we've ever seen. He won a couple championships. Maybe not really the best leader. He's just a great player. He gets hurt a lot. But he's one of the best scorers we've ever seen. He's just this freak athlete who we hadn't before him. We really hadn't seen somebody do the kind of things that he does, but we know what he is. So I don't really get into the business of criticizing Kevin Durant too much or getting too upset about it. It's just, he is what he is. Steph Curry, we know what Steph Curry is. Aaron Rodgers, at this point, we know what Aaron Rodgers is. Okay? He's won the MVP multiple times. He won a Super Bowl, which he played really well in that Super Bowl. He kind of got robbed of at least making another Super Bowl with that Seattle game. And then, he's had some big playoff games where he hasn't played that well. We know what he is, okay? It's not going to, unless, even if he wins another Super Bowl, people are still going to criticize all that stuff that happened in between the next Super Bowl he wins and the last one. So, I really don't, what is there to get upset about at this point, And if you want, and Colin Cowherd's like, oh, well, he shouldn't be like this. He should be a better leader and blah, 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 blah. Well, what else are they going to do at quarterback in Green Bay? Why would they get rid of him? I mean, who do you have that's better? Jordan Love, it looks like he sucks. Okay. So you're just going to draft somebody else and start over? Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's one of those really annoying stories that I just legit do not care about.
Well, and I also think Aaron Rodgers loves the attention. I think he loves the fact that he says these things and everyone gets all up in arms about it. And I think he's totally doing it on purpose. Like, enough, man. Like, if you're going to retire, then retire. But talking about it all the time when you're still playing, like, dude, get over yourself. So listen, could Green Bay trade him? Maybe. But, I mean, I think he's got 59 million guaranteed reasons to come back next year. So I think he'll probably be back. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't know that we've known a lot of players who've walked away from that much money. So, yeah, I think he probably comes back to Green Bay. I don't know that Green Bay has the organization where they're ready to just move on from him. Because if they wanted to do that, I think they would have done it by now. So yeah. I think it's kind of all nonsense, and I don't think he's going anywhere. The other thing, and this thing drove me crazy from this weekend, and I've heard a number of people go crazy about this. So the Houston-Indianapolis game was incredible. Houston pulls off this crazy
one of the best
4th and
games
20.
of the weekend, really.
Oh, it was
amazing.
It was great. So they pull off this incredible 4th and 20 play. They get a touchdown. They go for 2. They win the game. And because of them winning that game, they don't get the number 1 pick, and the Bears get the number 1 pick. And everybody's like, oh, my God, how could you do that? What are you guys, insane? Blah, blah, blah. What are you, nuts? And everybody was on this. Bill Simmons, every NFL, show that I listened to was going crazy about this. And I'm like, guys, has anybody paid attention? Like, and I heard the best description I heard of this was Mike Lombardi said, okay, is there Peyton Manning in this draft? No. Okay. Is John Elway in this draft? Okay. Then who gives a shit? Like, the Bears don't need a quarterback, so they're not taking one, but no one's going crazy over Bryce Young. Okay. Like, has anyone noticed that, like, Patrick Mahomes was drafted 10th? Deshaun Watson was drafted 12th. I know Deshaun Watson wasn't good this year, but before, when he played in Houston, he was good. Okay, Josh Allen was taken like 7th. Like, could we chill out on you have to have, none of these quarterbacks are we have to have this guy. Not one of them. I know everybody's getting all crazy with Bryce Young because he was so amazing in college. Half the NFL teams are out on Bryce Young right now today because he's too small. So stop with the nonsense. No one lost their mind because they didn't get the number 1 pick. Now, well, they couldn't trade down and all that stuff. Now that, they lost the opportunity to do that. Man, listen, I don't think anybody's given up multiple first-round picks to get up to the number 1 pick anyway. Like, number 1, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But I still think they've got the 2nd pick. They get C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young if they want them. And it's likely the Bears are going to take somebody at 1, and Houston will have whatever quarterback they want. So this was not a disaster that they didn't lose this game. This does not, like, and by the way, you can put me in the chair. If this was the Dolphins, I really wouldn't care that much. It really wouldn't bother me that much if we got the number 2 pick instead of the number 1 pick. This really is not that big a deal. There's nobody in this draft that everyone's going to be killing themselves for. So I just thought the hemming and hawing about this was ridiculous. I thought the bigger story that Colin Cowherd brought up is, are the Bears going to screw this up? That's the bigger story.
Yeah. Well, first of all, guys, when you're talking about tanking, okay. Tanking is more part of the culture in the NBA because the NBA just has a different culture than the NFL. So, there have been times where people are like, man, they're really resting their starters this much in an NBA game. And it's like, yeah, it seems like they're trying to lose. Or if someone gets hurt and they're like, hey, take your time coming back, right? They do that in the NBA. But in the NFL, if you want to lose a lot of games, that's the general manager. Okay, right. You get all the good players out of there, and then the players that you have left, they're going to try to win every game that they play. Okay, now because they're bad, they're not going to win that many games, but they're going to be trying to win every game they play. That's That's the NFL, because you can't be going out there trying to lose because, you can get cut tomorrow. So it's just that's part of the reason the NFL has a different culture. So, yeah, I don't, was it disappointing, for instance, when the Dolphins won 5 games the year that Joe Burrow was the number 1 pick? Yeah, because I really would like to have Joe Burrow. But, that's more, if you want to criticize the general manager for that, I guess. But, it's just one of those things I don't really. Now, in terms of the Bears screwing things up, you just mean not drafting the right guy or not drafting players to help Justin Fields? What?
Yeah. Picking the wrong guy or making some bogus trade that's not going to help them or anything like that. And, I think this is a new front office, general manager than there has been in the past. And these are not the people that drafted Justin Fields. So I know people are floating, and we'll talk about this. I know people are floating that out there, which, you sent me earlier, which is just a ridiculous idea. Well, let's trade Justin Fields and draft Bryce Young. And, I just want to clear.
God, go ahead.
I want to clear the air with that. Guys, I like Bryce Young. I'm great. Everything he did in college was fantastic. He is not as good a prospect as Justin Fields is. Period. Nobody is talking about Bryce Young the way they were talking about Justin Fields in 2021. That's not what's happening. So I just want to point out, I know everybody's in love with him. I get it, blah, blah, blah. But the guy is small. Let's just look at this from a practical standpoint. You're going to put Bryce Young behind the Bears offensive line? Justin Fields can't make it through the season behind the Bears offensive line. And you want to you want to replace him with Bryce Young? Are you smoking crack? You could get this trade, you can get all this stuff. I don't think you're getting all that stuff for that pick. I just don't.
Well, and people are buying into, I guess, the idea that, the quarterback fixes everything. Well, to an extent, okay? But Justin Herbert's really good, and when he had his receivers out for a lot of the year, their offense struggled. Patrick Mahomes is amazing, but remember, he's got a lot of talent around him. He's got Andy Reid calling the plays. For a couple years ago, they had to fix the offensive line, to support Patrick Mahomes so he could do what he needs to do. The Bills have continued to kind of build around Josh Allen because he needs support to be able to do what he needs to do. Okay, so the idea that you're going to trade Justin Fields for Bryce Young I guess you can try to also address other stuff, but it's you just got Justin Fields. He can't stay healthy because your offensive line is so fucking bad. Okay, you had one coach with Justin Fields, and then you got rid of that coach, and you got a new coach in there. So now you're going to start over again. At some point, you have to put your foot in the ground and try to. Okay, this is the quarterback now. Let's try to move forward and see what we got.
Well, yeah, and I heard this ridiculous thing. So Bill Simmons on his podcast is like, well, but if you draft Bryce Young, you get 2 more years on the rookie contract. And I'm like, yeah, but if the guy can't stay healthy anyway because he's too small, it doesn't matter. You've got to take who you think is the better quarterback. You've already got Justin Fields. You've still got 2 more years where he's not making any money. I don't understand what this idea is where you get this long rookie contract. It doesn't matter if the rookie quarterback sucks or he can't play or he's injured, as evidenced by what the Dolphins are going through, right? So, yeah, and listen, the Bears had Justin Fields this year. They went 3-14.
Yeah.
Well, what can I tell you? Last year, by the way, you think the quarterback doesn't need help. Last year, Trevor Lawrence, he's got Urban Meyer as his coach. They got the number 1 pick. I don't know what to tell you. So, yeah, that was just some ridiculous nonsense that needs to be corrected. People need to stop going on TV and saying a bunch of crap. Now, if the Bears want to trade down from the first pick and get some more picks because they need a lot of help, I'm fine with that. I get it.
That's actually a good idea, yeah.
I understand that. I just don't think you're going to get enough for it to make it worth your while. I just don't. So that's my opinion. Maybe I could be wrong. We got to go through the draft process, so that's a long time. But I just thought that was ridiculous and wanted to bring that up. I'm glad you're on my side with this. The other thing is, I'm done with Brandon Staley, the Chargers coach. I'm finished. That fiasco he put on in that game where he's got his starters all in the game into the fourth quarter in a completely meaningless game that they don't need to win, he should be shot. The guy should have been fired right after the game. And then Mike Williams gets hurt. What? I kept watching that going, what are you doing? He's got Justin Herbert in the game in the fourth quarter. What's going on, man? Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And you brought up a very good point. Like, he doesn't play his guys in the preseason because it's a meaningless game. Why is everybody in this game?
Yeah.
I mean,
I can understand if you wanted to play him for a few series, like the first half, the first
totally
quarter.
Fine.
Just keep him. Yeah, just go out there, play a little bit, throw the ball around, get some work in, that's fine. But yeah, keeping him all in a meaningless game. I mean, yeah. I mean, we've been criticizing Brandon Staley for 2 years. So, but the funny thing is though that I think whenever people are talking about replacing the head coach of the Chargers, I think some people get the idea that the Chargers will make a good decision when they hire a coach, or they'll hire the guy that everybody wants. Bullshit. No, they fucking won't. They had Norv Turner in there for several years during Phillip Rivers' prime. Okay, they wasted Phillip Rivers' prime with Norv fucking Turner. So the idea that they're going to... Remember, Eli Manning didn't want to play there. Okay? He forced a trade away from there in the draft. Okay, now this was like 20 years ago. Okay? It hasn't really changed much there. I mean, Brandon Staley, whatever. I mean, he's going to keep going for it on fourth down when he shouldn't, and not kicking field goals and doing stupid shit. And he cost them. I firmly believe he cost them a playoff berth last year. And
absolutely.
Maybe he's I mean, you got to protect the health of your players so you have them in the playoffs. Because I mean, the Chargers, look, Justin Herbert could go toe to toe with these other quarterbacks. Like, I'm not saying the Chargers are going to make the Super Bowl, but would I be shocked? Like, no, Justin Herbert has that level of talent. We just haven't seen it. We haven't seen him able to do it. So it's like, but you got to give him support. Like I was just saying with Justin Fields, if the quarterback doesn't have support, then it doesn't fucking matter. So
well, and the other thing is, you want to see how fragile coaching is. If you just switch quarterbacks, right? If you put Tua on the Chargers and you put Herbert on the Dolphins, Brandon Staley is fired, and Brian Flores still has a Dolphins job. So it's amazing to me that Brandon Staley gets away with this nonsense. And if they blow this game to Jacksonville because of his bullshit, we'll see how this goes. But you're right; it probably doesn't make any difference because they're so incompetent with hiring the coach that it probably doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, when they talk about they're going to get Sean Payton, I don't know if Sean Payton wants to go there, and I don't know if they would they would hire him anyway. So because Brandon Staley kind of came out of nowhere. So they're probably maybe they want to go the young coach route, or maybe they'll do something stupid and hire some old guy.
They want to go the cheap route. That's what they want to go. That's number one. I always will talk about this in the playoff preview, but I think one of the negatives that we've seen now with letting all these teams into the playoff, now that we have 14 teams into the playoffs, is that Seattle and Miami, not really playoff teams, not really legit, and I think honestly, because of, and by the way, this is the you want to talk about not playing 17 games. This is a perfect example. Like the Ravens court, like we don't know if Lamar Jackson's playing. We don't know if Tua is playing for the Dolphins. Like the 49ers are on their third string quarterback. Like there were 13 teams this year that played at least 3 quarterbacks. And I think 4 or 5 of those played 4 quarterbacks. So yeah, and there's about half of the teams in the playoffs. I'm like, no shot, like no chance to win the Super Bowl. So going into that.